the total output from the field over 20 years of the contract with Dana Energy will amount to 160 million barrels. The sanctions have forced Iran to increasingly rely on domestic companies for the expansion of its petroleum sector. South Korea's military says North Korea has fired at least one ballistic missile toward its eastern sea, although the sea's joint chiefs of staff did not immediately say how far the missile flew. According to report, the launch extends a recent barrage in North Korean weapons demonstrations, including dozens of launches last week that the North described as simulated attacks on South Korean and U.S. targets. South Korea says the recovered debris of a North Korean missile fired towards the south amid a barrage of sea launches last week was determined to be a Soviet-era anti-aircraft weapon that dates back to the 1960s. The ministry said a similar missile was used by the Russian military to execute ground attacks during its invasion of Ukraine. The South Korean Defense Ministry said it strongly condemns the North Korea's firing of the SF-5, which it says as a violation of a 2018 inter-Korean military agreement on reducing tension. An earthquake of magnitude 6.6 struck Nepal early this morning, killing at least 6 people, destroying multiple houses in the western district of Dhoti and shaking the Indian capital, New Delhi. Confirming an earlier figure, Home Ministry official Tulsi Jira disclosed that 5 other people were seriously injured as 8 houses collapsed. Dhoti's Deputy Superintendent of Police, Bola Bhattar, explained that a ground rescue team of the Nepali Army has been rushed to the site and 2 helicopters were on standby in nearby Suket and Nepal Guji towns. Meanwhile, media reports after the earthquake show tremors were also felt in New Delhi and surrounding areas some kilometers from Dhoti. And here again are the highlights of the world at noon. In Nigeria, Minister of Interior Mr. Ralph Aregbesola has written to the Nigerian Governors Forum to request a meeting in order to decongest jails around the country. Officials of the DR Congo's military have used newly deployed jets to bombard M23 rebel positions in the east of the country, with some residents of rebel-held territory fleeing across the border. An earthquake of magnitude 6.6 struck Nepal early this morning, killing at least 6 people, destroying multiple houses in the western district of Dhoti and shaking the Indian capital, New Delhi. That was the word at noon, edited by Nathaniel Oyegoke and delivered by Oluwatoyin Ojayemi. The recent security advisory issued by the U.S. Embassy in the country and the concern generated thereafter caught the attention of News Talk Today. It is written by Aboderi Adeyemi.
Globally, terrorism is the greatest security challenge and the bane to all efforts to ensure adequate security for lives and property. The world's security has worsened in the last decade by incessant wantonly killings by terrorists whose agenda is quite unfathomable, other than saying it is mere religious dogmatism. The prediction of terrorist attack is an effort of effective surveillance anchored on dragnet of a network of intelligence gathering. This has been making it possible the issuance of security warnings of impending terror threats to a part of global geopolitical zone. Nigeria became the focus of the U.S. Embassy Intelligence Service when it issued an advisory security alert to its nationals residents in the country of a possible terrorist attacks in the country's federal capital territory, Abuja. The alert warning listed the various government institutions and installations as target for attacks. The security omen also speculated attacks on public and private places. The U.S. State Department that supervises the embassy later authorized the department's non-essential staff and U.S. families in Abuja to flee Nigeria as a venom lending credence to the security alert. Britain, Germany, Australia, and Canada also followed the U.S. by warning their citizens to avoid non-essential traveling to Abuja. The level of concern is not surprising. Terrorists have worsened security in the country in the recent years. Besides, the latest Global Terrorist Index ranks Nigeria as the 6th most terrorized country in the world. Likewise, Abuja has been targeted by terrorists in the past. This includes the tragic 2011, the police headquarters and United Nations building in Abuja. Despite all the antecedents of Abuja insecurity breaches, the federal government appears to have downplayed the security alerts. Although all security apparatus have been sharpened, signaled by the U.S. Embassy, this informed our position to call on the security agencies in the country to put all the necessary security measures in place to ensure adequate security that will avert any clandestine planned attacks by terrorists in the country. It is equally important for all Nigerians to embrace vigilance in order not to be a victim. Having said this, it is apposite to examine the manner the U.S. Embassy brought to the public domain the information on the looming security breach in the country. The intelligence shared in form of a warning to U.S. nationals resident in the country. News Talk posits that the intelligence should have been a communication between two sovereigns, that is, Nigerian and U.S. governments. This would make security a joint responsibility and a global network issue. News Talk observes that American security network is reputed for promptness in intelligence gathering. However, the dissemination of such information